Welcome to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross.
I'm David.
And today we are presenting, well, a small conversation about 8th edition, and we're going to focus on various aspects of what we've seen so far in the games we've playtested, and obviously from our experience in 7th. So today we're going to talk about mainly the movement and the psychic phase, mainly because this is the first video, and those are traditionally the two first phases of the game. Setup, etc., and deciding what game format. So with that, we're going to focus beginning with the movement phase. The key difference you'll probably notice in the movement phase is that all models now have a movement characteristic. This is compared to obviously 7th, which had 6 key unit types, which could be infantry, jump pack, jetpack, cavalry, etc. Yeah. So all these different types, and although there was only about 6 or 7, which kept it quite simple, it was then they had rules on top of them which could dictate their sort of movement. So it might be, you can move 6 inches, but then you can jump back, or you can influence your run move, but you lose Hammer of Wrath. And generally, although there was only 6, it was actually a bit complicated when you add in all the special rules.
Yeah.
They got flung in with it. So now it's pretty much a lot more simple, where basically you have your movement characteristic, and that is more or less it. Unless you've got a special ability in your data sheet, that is how far you can normally move, which I'm quite a big fan of. I think it goes back to sort of, if you've ever played Fantasy, then you notice that's always had a movement characteristic, and I think in Age of Sigmar,
I think there's something there,
yeah, they've got movement characteristics as well. And I think the simplification from having just core unit types with lots of rules to just here's your movement value, and then obviously your special rules in the data slate is kind of a big advantage of that one. Keeps it simple, which is not too bad.
I think it lets the games kind of play through it quite smoothly too.
Yeah.
There's less flicking back and forth between the unit types and actually trying to remember what unit does this do. Okay, it's got a special rule if I move that far, or if I move through this, or there's a whole ton of stuff with it that 7th Ed didn't really condense properly.
Sure.
With you just having your data sheet, just look at the number, simple ahead, go and do it, and that's pretty much it.
Sure.
They've simplified it down for the right reasons.
Yeah, so it's pretty nice in that way. The only parts that I now remember that can overcomplicate it a wee bit is that certain vehicles and things, as you get weaker, your movement can be influenced, same with your attack and various other stats. That can possibly get a bit messy, but I feel because it's all on still one page of that one, as long as they keep it to one page, you shouldn't really, make a mess of that one.
Yeah. I think the rest of the movement phase, you've got a few other things which I think are quite nice. So obviously advancing simple. Yeah,
advancing's quite simple. It's basically still like run. I think you actually, instead of doing run where you did in the shooting phase, you'd like decide your shooting phase if you're going to run.
Yeah.
You do your movement phase and you basically give up shooting and charging, but it works the same as you roll a d6, add that to your movement, that's how far you go. The one disadvantage of that is that you sort of lose your tactical advantage of being able to go, do I want to shoot or do I want to run? You have to decide that in the movement phase. Although it keeps the momentum of the game going, I feel.
I think the one thing about advance that it will help with, so there are other caveats. You can still potentially shoot when you advance, but there's special rules to go with that, which we'll come to. But with the advancing, if you think about it, the way the movements now work as well in 8th edition. So it's very much the rule of, I'm calling it the rule of 1 inch.
Okay.
So you've got the rule of 1 for your dice rolls. This is the rule of 1 inch. 1 inch is really important. And if you are within an inch of an enemy unit, for example, you essentially can't do anything.
Yeah.
You can do a few things when it comes to the combat phase, but you are essentially kind of out of the game for the movement unless you do a few things, or you're out of the game for the shooting part unless you do a few things. With that advance roll, it really puts you in a position to kind of control the board a bit.
Right.
So for example, I think Tyranids will find it very useful because they've got big blobs of guys.
Yep.
And albeit the Nids, so far from what I've seen, the shooting isn't really their strongest point.
Yeah.
It's board control in the assault phase. So having a blob of guys, you can just run. You're actually taking up so much board space that you're denying your opponent potentially moving to a certain location because they can't get within an inch of you, or they're not allowed to within an inch of you. So run moves can be more important now. Before you were always running to get to an objective or running to get in range to shoot something the following turn. This could be a massive tactical advantage to just get board control. Just run your force out and deny moving your opponent from moving within an inch of you.
Right, okay, yeah, very true. The main thing is, obviously, to explain about the rule, the 1 inch rule, is that you can never move to be within an inch of yours. So you'll never deny your opponent unless you go into the assault phase. You'll never be within that 1 inch, so they can still move fully, shoot fully as normal, unless they then declare assault. Then you can move within that 1 inch part, which is quite important because we, in our playtest, got a bit confused about this 1 inch. When does it take an effect and when does it not? But in the movement phase, it does specifically say you can't move within that inch. You can, and it does have later restrictions, but you can obviously make that 1 inch if you're going to move into charge.
If you're within an inch of your opponent, the next thing as well is the falling back. So in the movement phase, if you, for whatever reason throughout the game, because there will be situations you might find yourself within an inch.
Well, when you're assaulted.
Exactly. You can voluntarily fall back. So you can essentially remove yourself out of an assault phase, or there could be some tactical advantage to falling back, and you do it in your movement phase. So, for example, you may be locked in combat with a unit you're not enjoying.
Of course.
It's not going your way. And it's not a roll to fall back, like a retreat roll or regroup roll, things like that. It's just you move back your movement, but you cannot end within an inch of an enemy unit. So the tactical advantage of that is, again, move your units out, fall back, and then it frees up another one of your units to shoot at that unit you're potentially locked in combat with. For example, we won't go into much of the shooting, but that just allows you to free up potential targets in your turn. Also just, I guess, lets you run away. Without having to, for example, in the 7th Ed you had our weapons are useless. Which was essentially you're retreating and you have to try and regroup again, and it's quite frustrating. This one, no, just get yourself out of dodge. Just
get out there. The main thing to say about that is that when you do fall back, you cannot shoot. I don't think you can advance or charge either.
You can't do anything.
You can't do anything. So there is benefits and disadvantages to that. Mainly because if you move back, and you can only move back, let's say if you're an average character, somewhere between 6, maybe maximum 8 inches, chances are you will get charged again next turn, which is a bit of a disadvantage. So you really need to focus on how you're going to have other units support other ones to make sure they can clear that way.
I think also, just to not put any armies, but Tau will have a lot of fun with that. That's a rule that Tau will enjoy, the fallback rule. Mainly being because most of their units with suits will have the fly keyword. And when you have the fly keyword, you're allowed to actually fall back and shoot. Which before, if you fall back at the moment, you can't shoot, you can't charge, you can't advance. At least Tau can keep kiting back and shooting. And if their weapons aren't pistol weapons, then still fall back, get away from that 1 inch. Do some damage.
Oh my goodness. Well, so I've not read much about Tau. Thanks, David. Looking forward to playing your Tau again.
So that's really it.
So the movement, it's really just kept a page in the core rulebook, and I think they've got a small pamphlet as well. So it's a lot more simple before. If you took into account what you had last time of unit types and all their movement, etc., you've now just got a page to learn. Hopefully, there might be other synergies to work with it, but mainly that's quite a good condensation of the rules. Keep it simple, handy for new players and handy for even veterans to just go, right, cool, need to remember. By the end of the day, you just got to remember, just look at your dice and go, I can move this many inches. Loved it. Fantastic.
So the psychic phase, very simple, love it and hate it. But that's just me.
Well, that's fair. On my experience, psychic phase has never been good, mainly because I'm not so good at psychic phase. It requires a lot of planning, and David has meticulously plans out his psychic phases so that they are really good. However, the cost of that previously, I felt in 7th edition, is that when you begin the psychic phase, and if it's not your psychic phase, you can go, cool, let me just wait the half an hour you spend to gather up your 40 odd psychic dice, roll your other one, and then decide what you're going to do. I would go off and go get a drink, make myself a sandwich, eat that, come back, you say you still need 15 minutes, I would have a nap, and then we'd get on to actually rolling with the phase. So with it being quite complicated, especially in psychic heavy armies, I don't know how much on 8th Psychic is, so David, do you want to tell us, is it as complicated and as time consuming as before?
So the simple answer is no.
Thank goodness.
I'll find a way to make it though.
Please don't.
So yeah, it's really simple. The psychic phase directly after movement is kind of split into 4 sequences.
Okay.
So essentially you're choosing a psyker, you're choosing a psychic power, making the test, deny the witching, just resolving it. It's really, really simple.
Okay.
So the main premise of the psychic phase, however, you need to get your thoughts of 7th out of the window. You're no longer gathering master levels or lots of dice or rolling for warp charges. Those ideas are completely thrown out the window.
Okay.
And they've consolidated it all down to one simple idea of 2 dice.
Right.
So, yeah, your data sheet will determine, first of all, how many powers you're allowed to manifest this turn and how many deny the witch you're allowed to attempt
Yes,
this turn.
okay.
There are a few caveats across the open, narrative and match play, which the really only simple one you need to know is what match play does.
Right, okay.
And we'll come to that in a minute once I've explained the phase, but that's really all you need to know. So, we'll start. Let's do a wee kind of mock. We'll choose a psyker. I'm going to choose Magnus.
Oh,
because
right.
He's my bro.
Just begin with, you know, possibly the most powerful psyker and what can be decided, you know, in this game, possibly, I don't know all of them, but Magnus is pretty high tier.
Magnus, the
As
spirit
you do.
So, yeah, I'm choosing my psyker and I'll look at his data sheet and it'll tell me how many powers I can cast and where I'm getting those powers from, essentially.
Okay.
And the data sheets at the moment, it looks like each faction that can cast psychic has their own kind of table. Like Chaos have the Hereticus and things like that, and so you kind of get all your psychic abilities are condensed usually into 3 powers per table, it looks like. But you'll see that in your books. But every psyker will know the universal power, Smite.
Right, okay, yeah.
Smite is very simple. It's 5+ to cast, you have to equal or greater, D3 mortal wounds if you get it. If you roll 10 or more, it's D6. Now I'm saying if you roll 10 or more, you only roll 2 dice whenever manifesting a psychic power. So to manifest that power, you'll take 2 dice and you will roll equal or greater than, like I said, of whatever the power value says. So in this case it's 5. And that's it. That's how you manifest a power. 2 dice, roll greater or equal, and it's done.
Cool.
But there is a risk.
Okay, of course there is.
So
This is
psychic.
psychic, 40k, you know.
And this is where maybe my personal bias comes in. I don't feel the risk. I don't like it. But hey, I like the Perils of Warp table. It was always a ton of fun.
Yeah.
But the risk is involved. So during your 2 dice roll to manifest that power, if you roll a double 1 or a double 6, your class is Perils of the Warp. What happens is your psyker will immediately suffer D3 mortal wounds.
Right.
Which is quite dangerous, especially if you're a low wound psyker.
Yeah, that's okay.
So you'll suffer D3 wounds. However, there's more to it. If you happen to die as a result of Perils of the Warp, your psyker essentially explodes. And every unit within 6 inches of the psyker will also take D3 mortal wounds.
Every unit?
Every unit within 6 inches will suffer D3 mortal wounds.
Okay.
So that's lovely.
Yeah, that's not ideal. Okay. I'll save all my comments for once you explain the whole phase, and because I'm learning here as well.
So you've done your perils, you've done your successful cast, whatever that may be. However, though, your opponent can attempt to deny the witch.
Yep.
And deny the witch is very simple. It's again determined on your data sheet. Who can deny the witch, and most commonly it will be psychers. However, some armies can do it without psychers, namely Necrons. Their Canoptech spiders still have the access to gloom prisms, which essentially allows that spider to make a deny the witch roll.
Cool, okay.
So it will say in your data sheet how many attempts to deny the witch your psyker can do. Your psyker must be within 24 inches of the caster. So I've chosen a psyker to be within 24 inches of Magnus. I'm going to go try and deny the witch. So Magnus rolled an 8, he got his smite off. I have to roll greater than his roll.
Yep.
So it's just a 2d6 roll, just like it is to cast. If I get greater than what he rolled, stopped.
Cool. Okay. So it's not equal to or greater. It has to be greater.
It has to be greater.
Okay.
Equal to or greater to cast, but it has to be greater to deny.
Okay.
However, I feel that does balance out the deny the witch a bit.
Yeah.
Because in the past, historically, you would have an opponent, for example, myself, who would chuck 15 dice at something. and go, there's 10 4+s, and your opponent had to then roll 10 6s.
Yeah, which, unless you're another psychic in the army, but traditionally it didn't happen so much. It was like 6s you had to roll, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. So it was. I can see what they're doing now. Keeping it a roll of 2 dice really balances out the whole phase.
Yeah.
I don't like the perils as much. I don't feel it's as fluffy. But hey, there's still a risk, and it's still a deadly risk to cast them. And then once you've done that, that's you. Whatever the outcome from Deny the Witch or Manifest it may be, your psychic power is resolved.
So in your case, when you cast Smite with Magnus, you rolled an 8, so it was D3 mortal wounds you caused.
D3.
D3, so D3 mortal wounds. Job's good.
Job's good.
Move on to your next psychic ability. But please don't right now.
Next psychic ability.
No, we're not playing that.
It's really, before you ask your questions, really quickly to point out this stage though. So again, there are caveats between all 3 of the different styles of play.
Right.
Open, narrative, match. Match play, there's a very important caveat to the psychic phase.
Okay.
So, as the psychic phase is kind of been reined in, with match play, however, you can only cast that one power, except for Smite, as is universally known. So if Magnus had a unique power that also Ahriman knew, for example, only one of those powers can be cast per turn.
Oh, really? Okay.
So even if it's on both their data sheets, Ahriman can't cast it as well as Magnus.
Okay.
So in match play, you really have to be careful what psychers you're wanting to use.
Yeah.
Everyone can still use Smite.
Yeah.
But you can't cast the same power more than once per turn.
Ooh, okay, that's very similar to Age of Sigmar.
Very similar. But I actually do like that though.
Yeah, I can accept
it's
that.
It's the uniqueness on the battlefield.
A lot better than having like 5 units of invisibility or something, you know.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. And is there any other, like, when you were going to say there, another form of match play that might affect psychic, or am I?
That's the only one that affects psychic. Match play will impact other phases, like the shooting phase or the command points. But again, we'll come on to those in some other videos.
Yeah, we'll come to that.
But for psychic phase, that's the main impact.
Cool. So a couple of things in the psychic phase, and this is saying to someone who more doesn't play psychic phase, is more, you know, a participant of someone else's.
Because you're banned?
Yeah. So I like the simplicity of it, rather than what I hated about the psychic phase before. So you almost had a whole bunch of units powering up certain units. So you might, you know, especially I'd see in some armies, you'd have like small psychic units and go, right, I just need their dice to supercharge this one guy.
Yep.
Now sounds like all the psychers you field, because they can now all do psychic abilities, and you're not using them to use warp charge. It means that they're all going to be a bit more useful. Like that, big fan. It's like, you're not going, oh cool, I'm just getting 3 points so you can do an amazing spell.
Yeah.
You've all got a purpose. Love it. Just makes things seem purposeful. I like the Deny the Witch, David. Sorry, no, the perils. I like the perils.
Yes, the perils.
I like that. The peril chart beforehand we needed to refer to a lot. You can try and remember it, but then it was like, you know, 2 consequences. You had to pass your leadership test or suffer this, or pass leadership and it does this, or fail and do that. There was a lot of if buts. You had basically six results. A couple of them had if buts. Now it's just, right, cool, you've suffered your D3 wounds, you might explode, move on. It speeds up significantly. I like that. There is no chance you might become a god, which sometimes happened if you rolled, I think, a 6 and then passed the leadership test. You'd be like an amazing combat guy and everything. But now it just feels a lot simpler.
It does.
I like that. It's going to make it go a bit quicker.
The key theme going through both of those phases, moving and psychic, is simpler.
Yeah, simpler, quicker, easier. You'd get on with it. The other part of Deny the Witch. So now you can only deny the Witch if you've got an Arpsyker within range. How I feel about that, you did stop one of my points by bringing up something. I was going to say there is certain armies who don't have access to Psykers.
Yes.
Principally, I was going to say Necrons, though you did mention Spider has a way, and Dark Elder, who, and I've not read if they've got maybe something else that can stop it, but traditionally they never actually had access to any Psykers. So that means they could never, like, unless they've got a unit that can, and I'll have a look after this, means they can't stop any psychic abilities. Even though now it sounds like it's a lot easier to do so.
If you think about it, they can't stop any psychic abilities. But in 7th edition, Necrons still had the same problem.
Yes.
Because the Tomb Spider still could get Gloom Prism, but it was it wasn't as, it was never taken, no Necron player ever used it. You'd just rather suck it up and deal with the phase, right?
Sure.
The difference with this is you still can't really stop the psychic phase as a Necron player, for example. However, the Necron phase has been reined in, the psychic phase has been reined in so much that the damage output will never be the same.
Well, we'll see, depending on armies and
unless you take Magnus.
Well, I don't know what he does. Traditionally, I know he does have a big state of doom, which is not ideal. But yeah, obviously Psychic went a bit crazy in the 7th edition. 8th edition, I'm glad they're reining it back, which I think is excellent. Keeping it a bit more simpler, I think was key for Psychic. You know, I know a lot of people, especially competitive players, a few friends of ours, who absolutely love the Psychic phase just because they can make a horrendous monster of a unit that could, you know, wipe out the boards, you know, both metaphorically, physically. You just destroys everything, and you're like, oh my goodness.
If you want a good example of a manipulation of the psychic phase, historically in one of our old and original battle reports, you have me and Ross versus Will and Richard, and our entire army basically walks through because of two models.
Two models, yeah.
Who manipulated the psychic phase to their advantage, which was Kairos and Bellicor. Which
were both controlled by you, and I think I just got punished during that game. But yeah, two models who just did the game.
That in 7th edition you can make terrifying characters. Now in this edition you still can, but they have reined it in, and I'm saying for the biased reasons that I'll no longer have my 30 dice and my 30 minutes of planning.
Yeah.
But the phase, I do like the simplicity. I think the simplicity works universally for this game. It's going to make it a lot faster, a lot easier to fly through this phase, and you won't be manipulated by a demon army anymore, or manipulated by a Greynake's army anymore. They'll have to actually fight with proper weapons.
Yeah.
So overall though, it is a good move, it's a good call. Well done, Games Workshop, well done.
Okay. So with that, that's how to look at the movement and psychic phase for now. I believe the next step for us will probably be some of the key, well I suppose it's the key combat ones, which is obviously the shooting phase and the assault phase. We'll look at that in our next video, we'll look at that in a bit more detail. So many changes, especially for shooting, I really want to talk about.
Yeah.
And then there's some key aspects of assault that I think we both want to really discuss and quite frankly hear your opinions on.
Yeah.
But that'll be in our next video. Hope you enjoyed. If there's any comments you feel that maybe things we've got wrong, or any key points you want to discuss, maybe hear from us, our point of view, please comment below. Let us know what you think.
We really want to hear what you guys think of 8th edition so far.
Absolutely,
really do.
Especially when we start recording, you're going to have to keep us right. It helps so much when you tell us, no guys, keep it right. So we'll obviously play a lot of games, let you guys see them and, you know, help us out. Thanks again, please comment, share, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on another Tabletop Assault Battle Report.